Welcome to the first day of the rest of your lives. My name is Andy Zaremba, and with me behind the helm today, as usual, is my brother Mike.
Hey everybody, good morning, and happy 4-year anniversary of doing the podcast to the day.
Wow, how do you remember these dates? Like we had our 5-year for Float House on Thursday. And
Wednesday.
Wednesday, thank you. And you text me like, hey, it's our 5 years today. I'm like, oh, I knew it was around this time, but I didn't know the exact date. And this is the 2-day that we actually did our first podcast. So That's amazing.
Yep.
You know, I remember the first podcast we did. Was this the pilot, or was this what we did with Graham?
With Graham.
With Graham. And this is when I definitely wasn't as comfortable as I am now with speaking in front of a camera and public speaking in general. And I think I might have said like 5 words on that podcast.
Yeah, it was
Graham
definitely a little
more or less
rough.
Carried it.
Yep.
But that's like anything, right? It's like whenever you start something off, you know, you have to have humility. You know, you have to be willing to be the fool, because you don't know what you're doing, right? Eventually, you know, you will kind of pick up the skill and get better at it. But it's like anytime you start something new, you know, that's what it is. You don't know what you're doing. So you have to be okay with like, you know, not being amazing at it at first, and then you learn as you go, right? And that's sort of the ongoing process of growth.
Yeah, and I just want to thank any of you who have been with us since those super early days. Thank you so much for your ongoing support.
Totally.
It's been quite a journey. We've had amazing guests. We've done amazing events and have different community experiences. And so just thank you all for joining us wherever along that journey you kind of joined in, and thanks for being here today, and I'm looking forward to today's episode.
One of the cool things about the podcast, since we are sort of geographically restricted, is that we do have amazing local reach. That's one thing we do have, and a lot of people know about us locally.
Totally.
And
yeah.
The funny thing is now people refer to me as the Vancouver Real guy now, as opposed to the Float House guy.
Oh wow.
Which is really interesting. Usually they say, "Oh, you're the one with the podcast." I'm like, "Yeah."
Cool.
Which is like a big flip, because usually it was the Float House guy for a long time, and now it's sort of morphed, for me at least, into that, which is, and I'm like, yeah, I do Float House too, and you know, but whatever, it's good, you know, and I'm happy to be like this hub that we've basically become in Vancouver, for an outlet for people to get their messages out, for us to build community around, and hopefully share some pretty good ideas.
Yeah, and like, you know, cultural evolution.
And that's what it's about, man.
Part of our tagline.
It's ongoing conversation, which constantly changes.
That's right.
But as usual, we're recording out of 70 West Cordova Street here in Vancouver, British Columbia, and we're out of our business, Float House. And if you have no idea what Float House is, go to our website, floathouse.ca. We have a really good page called New to Floating. I believe it's New to Floating, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and in there basically has a great video that links to YouTube, which is a 7-minute synopsis of what flotation therapy is and all the amazing benefits you get from it. And there's also like a Q&A in there, which breaks down like a lot of the main benefits that you get from it. And if you really want to dive deep into float research, check out Justin Feinstein 2016 Float Conference. And he dives into the contemporary research around flotation therapy and the research they're doing out of LIBOR, the Laureate Brain Institute for Mental Health, which is doing research on how it could be used as a potential treatment for anxiety disorders. So it's an amazing therapy, and the research is now validating what we've kind of already known for a long time. But of course, it has to be backed up, or else it's not really worth anything. But it looks really promising. So.
Totally. Yeah. So if you want to give that a shot, you can use the promo code VancouverReal and save 20%. A couple other little announcements in there for the Vancouver Real community. Come and join that online community, which actually meets in person. We do different events, and that's headed by Sean and Candy, who are our community managers. So definitely join that either through the mailing list on our website or through the Facebook page.
Yeah, and they're going to be launching a course this fall. It's going to be an online video course that'll be featuring 3 components. It's called Life in Motion, and it's going to have a meditation, a movement, and a nutrition component to it. So it's going to be a very holistic approach to your life to help you, really get your life on track in a very positive direction if you're looking for something like that. So that's coming down the pipe, but not until the fall. But what's coming up more recently, or more sooner, is the Man Talks event I'm running with Carlos De Leon. He's been on the podcast twice, and recently I've taken the reins of the Man Talks Vancouver City Director, which has been it's been an interesting journey in itself, because the community itself was there and sort of stagnant, and I'm taking it on and giving it CPR in a sense.
Right.
But we have our first event coming up on June 11th with Carlos, and it's all going to be about embracing the masculine shadow. So looking at the things that are common potential shadow elements of the masculine. And again, masculine and feminine runs in every single person, men and women. So masculine shadow. And he's going to be diving into that with an exercise as well and some Q&A.
Cool.
So if you want to get linked up with that, you can go to the Man Talks page. It should be live on there, or you're going to see it on our email list and on all over social media channels. So it's pretty easy to find if you want to come. And also, we're starting the new Mastermind group in June. So that's going to be starting late June, and there'll be more details to follow with that.
Cool.
And lastly, Mindfulness Meditation Mob. We have an event coming on June 21st. We're going to be at City Hall for International Yoga Day, International Aboriginal Day, International Skateboarding Day, and
it's a hell of a day.
Oh, it's the solstice as well.
And it's going to be a consciousness bomb on City Hall.
Exactly. So we're going to get together. We're going to do some yoga right beside City Hall and do a little meditation. And then there should be a little surprise from our friends over at Lululemon. They're putting together something that we'll do just as something extra, a bonus.
Awesome. It's really cool that they're actually just, genuinely supporting.
You know what? They like, the funny thing is, like, they have their reasons for doing it, and I have our reasons for working with them as well. But they're helping us out and helping us promote it and providing us with some resources in order to.
And they're doing it very tastefully, I believe.
Definitely, they're not plastering Lululemon all over it. So
exactly,
I think it's good. So, anyways, today we have a really interesting guest. I'm very excited to interview you today. We were introduced to you from our community coordinator, Sean Buckhold. And we have Curtis Stone, and you are the Urban Farmer, or the Urban Farmer, what's the website again?
.co.
.co.
Yeah.
Welcome to Vancouver Real.
Happy to be here.
So why don't we start off by you just telling everybody, what the Urban Farmer is all about and how you got to where you are today.
Sure. So I have no background in agriculture whatsoever. My background was in music, and I pretty much, from the time I was 12 years old, wanted to be a rock and roll musician. And I pursued that for pretty much all of my 20s. Moved to Montreal, pursued music seriously, did a lot of touring and all that. In 2008, when the recession was beginning and all the banks were coming down, I literally thought it was going to be the end of the world.
Yeah.
And because I'd been into geopolitics, let's say, for a long time. And I lived through a freezing rainstorm in 2008, and it scared the hell out of me because
Where was that?
In Montreal.
Right, I remember that.
And you get these freezing rainstorms that are insane, and it wasn't even one of the worst ones. But you see telephone wires snap, trees falling down, crashing on cars, roads and sidewalks so icy you can't even walk, and traffic's gridlocked. And I realized at that point kind of how fragile a system that's completely dependent on inputs is, in the sense that if the trucks stop coming in, people can go hungry really fast. And so
I've heard it's 2 days.
It's 2 or 3 days of food in Canada, basically, a surplus. So it was, to be honest, I don't want to hang up too much on dwell too much on the fear part of it, but it was initially what motivated me to look at, like, holy crap, like how fragile we are. And so I started to pursue an interest in agriculture, being like, I was kind of burning out on my music career back then, and I started looking at things.
What sort of music did you play?
Music for musicians.
Okay, all right.
Like not pop whatsoever. Post rock, sort of jazz influence type of music.
Cool.
And we studied music. I went to school for music composition and all this. And I remember just thinking, like, like how fragile. I couldn't even get out of my house. My house door was frozen shut this year.
You're trapped.
I was trapped. Went to the store and it was like there wasn't much in there, and I was just going like, man, if this were to go really bad, I would be food. I would be food. And I just remember thinking, like, what do I actually do in the world to provide value in an intrinsic way? Like, how do I actually help people? And I felt like the last thing the world needs is another great guitar player. It's like, I started to just be kind of disenfranchised with what I was doing. And it made me kind of go inward and think about, like, how do I provide value in the world? Like, if times are tough, what do I do? And there was many steps along that journey. I started watching a lot of YouTube videos. Anyways, I came to this thing like, you know what, I'm going to get out of Montreal. I'm going to go back out west. And I set out on a bike tour. I rode my bike down the west coast. I rode my bike from Kelowna, British Columbia to Tijuana. Wow. And I visited, it took me a month and a half, but I visited a lot of places along the way. Cool. Visited off-grid homesteads. I was really interested in sustainability, sustainable living, holistic living. And I just saw lots of cool stuff that inspired me on that trip. And I basically came back. Riding a bike 3,000 miles is a very empowering thing to do. I would encourage anybody who wants a way to travel in the most enriching way to do that, because you meet everybody. Did you
backpack it? Like how did you do that?
I had panniers on my bike. Yeah. So I was like, totally. Yeah, it was just, I camped, had all my camping gear, carried my food, stayed in campsites, and just met people everywhere. And it was really cool, because I wasn't really that extroverted of a person then. Yeah. Maybe I was, but sort of in the closet. And it really forced me to reach out to the world. And I learned a lot about myself on that trip. Didn't learn a lot about farming, but I was inspired. Came back in 2009 and was like, I want to farm. I always wanted to farm, but I couldn't buy land. This is one of the biggest things for young people, especially in British Columbia. It's like land is insanely expensive. You guys know all about real estate prices here in Vancouver. It's the same in Kelowna. And I heard about people farming in backyards. I heard about a guy named Wally in Saskatoon who was making a 6-figure salary farming in a combination of backyards. Wow. And so I was inspired by that.
So other people's backyards as well.
Other people's backyards. You lease out people's yards. So that's what I did. Smart. I essentially started with one yard that was a double lot. There was a house that was torn down. It was a vacant lot next to it, and then a house that had a front and a backyard. So it was altogether it might have been a fifth of an acre of production area. And so I just started farming. I was just like, I'm just going to bootstrap it. And so I just started doing it. Did it for my first season. Made some money at it. Made $20,000 my first season, which wasn't bad. It was enough to get me through a winter. And I just kept kind of doubling down on things that worked and eliminating things that didn't. And so I kind of refined this business model over 4 years. I doubled my farm every year for 4 years. And then I realized, whoa, I got way too over my head. I took on way too much responsibility, took on too much land, had too many employees. And then I stripped it down to a third of an acre with one part-time employee and myself, and I made $75,000 that year. Next year I made $90,000. Next year I made $100,000, farming on a third of an acre to a quarter acre of land. And I realized this works. So I wrote a book in 3 years ago now about my systems, but what I do.
What's the book called?
It's a book called The Urban Farmer. Okay. You can get it anywhere.
Awesome.
And that pretty much led me to be a content creator. Now I do a YouTube channel. I teach around the world, just educating people on a better way to farm. Because farmers, you talk about a downtrodden group of people. Farmers are just shit on in society. Right. People don't value really where their food comes from and who makes it. But also most people assume that farmers don't make money. It's because they actually don't make money. But there's another way. And so my mission has been to educate people on how they could actually make their farms profitable, make a good living, take vacations.
So a farm in their backyard, potentially.
Literally in their backyard or wherever. I teach farmers in all kinds of different contexts.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So when someone's farming out of the backyard, or maybe your own farms, what's the main produce that you're growing there?
So it depends. I tell people to just chase the market. Do what the market asks. Right. Drop your ideology. Drop your sort of vision of how you think the world ought to be, in the sense of who deserves to eat this food and what should they eat, is then just ask people. Yeah. It's it's just
let the market dictate what you're going to grow.
Yeah, I mean it's capitalism in its purest form, really. But it's it's cool because at a farmer's market, which is where I started selling, and then we expanded into restaurants, grocery stores, and all these kinds of things. Farmers markets are really a neat place to really learn about how to run a business, because you might have 100 interactions in a day. And if you're observational and you talk to people, all you got to do is ask people what they want. And then you'll identify, I'm sure you guys have heard the Pareto Principle, the rule of 80-20, hunker down on that 10 customers that come every week, ask them their names, get to know them, ask them what they want, and then start delivering that. And so I did that with my farm, and it's worked incredibly well because it allowed me to drop the things that were dead weight, that were consuming a lot of time, that weren't bringing a lot of revenue.
In terms of the produce that you were growing?
Exactly. Well, in many different aspects. Yes, produce principally, yes, but also systems we applied on the farm, systems we applied in the business, doubling down on that 80-20, eliminating the rest, and it made life so much easier.
Wow. Can you explain that, the Pareto distribution or the 80-20 rule, for people who don't understand that maybe?
Yeah, so, Pareto distribution, Pareto principle, the idea here is that, and it's more or less a square root. Like some people say it's, the classic one is 20% of your customers will bring you 80% of your business.
Right.
But what it actually really plays out more or less is the square root. So you can talk about it in a productivity sense, is that in a company of 100 people, 10 people will produce half the value of the company.
Right.
And you'll find this anywhere. And I love it because I actually see
That's
this.
a pretty standardized rule, eh?
It's unbelievable how true this is in not only natural systems, but everything that humans, particularly things that humans do.
Right.
Like whether it be classical composers, entrepreneurs, pop songs. It's like everywhere. It's like the lion's share or half of everything
is being produced by a small group of people.
A small group of people. And it's cool because if you identify what that is in your niche, and this is like, because I'm more of a content producer now. I have a YouTube channel and I do a lot of public talks. I found this in the content space as well. It's just like identify that audience or that group of people, double down on them, ask them what they want, find ways to deliver them more value. And it's way easier than just casting a big wide net. And it's like, and here's a farmer's market example. People at farmers markets will be like, I'm new at the market. I just showed up and I want to get people to try my stuff. So I'm going to just hand out samples to everybody. It's incredibly exhausting. Most people don't care.
Yeah.
A lot of those people just want something free and they're not going to come back. Whereas if you take a little bit more of a conservative approach in that you pay attention to who is paying attention to you, watch their body language, look what they're interested in, and ask them, they'll deliver huge returns to you.
Amazing.
So it's like selflessness that ends up as selfishness in a way. Because it's more about it's like the Gary Vaynerchuk thing of like give, ask in his book, Jab, 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 Right Hook.
Yep.
It's that same idea. And that's kind of what I love about the small farming space is that it's like all these things are universal. And if you can learn how to crush it at a farmer's market, I think you can actually crush it in any type of business.
I think that's so applicable to sort of any entrepreneurial venture. You use these principles and they will sort of universally apply. And it also speaks to a little bit why there is such a... it's one explanation for inequality, right? It's
huge.
It's just like if 10% of people are producing everything, well, obviously they're going to have more wealth,
stuff,
more resources than other people, and it's not to say that other people aren't capable of that. They probably are, but for some reason, like there is a certain person. Let me just finish this thought. That seems just to have the motivation and drive to want to do that.
Yes,
and some people are just fine living their life and like enjoying, and I think there's total merit to that. And
all power to them.
If you're happy, go for it, right? Yep. But if you're unsatisfied, it's like, well, something to look at,
Yeah.
Well, and it's a highly, for lack of a better word, competitive. Environment in the sense that there's lots of factors at play in terms of your intelligence, your capabilities, your education, but more so than any of those things. I don't know the research, but one huge thing is just your personal drive, your intrinsic desire to succeed at whatever you're trying to succeed at.
Absolutely.
Different people, there's going to be somebody out there in your field who just is literally hungrier than you are. And they're gonna
they'll
outperform
do 8-hour
you.
work weeks, no problem.
That's it.
And they'll grind it out for a couple of years if they need to. Right?
It's like Elon Musk says, if you put in 100-hour work weeks, chances are you're going to double the productivity of the average person who does 40 hours of work weeks. And it's just work wins over time.
The counter to that is that people say that in an 8-hour workday, for example, like 5 hours are typically wasted. And you're actually really only productive for like 3.
That's
and
the
sort of
Pareto,
that 80-20 rule.
Yeah,
right?
and that's like the Tim Ferriss thing too, like 4-hour work week kind of style, and that's another thing that we doubled down on in the farm, and then I doubled down on in just my other entrepreneur endeavors is just like identifying where I was wasting time. Like one thing for me is like another thing that's exponential is mindset. an abundance mentality versus a scarcity mentality. And I lived in scarcity for most of my life.
Yeah.
And that was
super common.
Oh, it's unbelievable common. I would say it's an epidemic in society, in the world in general.
Yeah.
And that kept me down, also kept me angry.
Resentful.
And and like the thing that so I have to pay the devil its due in the sense that like what motivated me into agriculture and seeking solutions was fear. But then I turned that fear into abundance.
And that's one thing I like to talk about too sometimes is how fear is, it does have a bad rap sometimes because there is a very good function for fear. Keeps us safe, right? And it is one of the strongest motivators
in the natural world. Yeah,
for sure. I mean, it keeps us safe from external threat. It keeps us, thinking about the future and trying to predict outcomes. But it also, once you do have the right motivation, like when say your life's on the line for something, as an extreme example.
Totally.
I mean, people are going to run through walls if they have to fix that problem.
That's right.
Right. So it's like, yes, it doesn't feel good. That's
Yeah.
for sure. It feels uncomfortable. It's like, it wrenches your guts, and it's not a nice feeling.
Yeah.
But man, it can make you motivated as hell.
It can, and it's necessary in the sense if you look at it objectively and say, like you said, in a natural way, this can motivate you. It can get you through something, but then you can put it in perspective.
And that's the other thing,
look at
too.
it objectively.
Not let it overrun your life, too. Because
Absolutely.
that's the other thing. If you get just totally in chaos world, like it's overwhelming. Right? You're going to get stressed out. You're going to burn out. You're going to break down. Right?
Yeah.
I think that's really interesting, man.
So actually, I want to ask.
Sure.
On that line for you, what was it that? Like, how did you do that? How did you flip it from this? Because scarcity, I mean, granted, I know there's elements of my life where I'm still in kind of a scarcity mindset. And perhaps in yours as well. Maybe it's a spectrum, it's a fluctuation. But
I think you need to upgrade your phone.
and get those earbuds with no wires. Yeah. That's the next step. But how did you, I don't know, for your own journey with this, can you kind of take us through what that looked like for you? And like, what did you do? How did you flip it? What was that like?
Well, it was... I mean, a couple of books along the way inspired me. One I read a long time ago was You Can't Afford the Luxury of a Negative Thought. Mm-hmm. I forget who the writer of that was. It's a classic.
Cool.
And then I read How to Win Friends and Influence People, right?
That's
Dale
good.
Carnegie classic. Yeah. And then I read Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill. But you know what it was for me was identifying what are the negative things in my life. And because like when you're bootstrapping a business, especially a farm, it's like you're so on your own because it's like nobody's going to come with you and pull weeds at 9 p.m.
No.
You know what I mean? So like there's so many times in my life. I had a lot of people that helped me actually. I have to say like, I give a lot of credit to people in my first couple formative years who really helped me and believed in what I was doing. And a lot of that was what pushed me forward and then to a point where I was on my own more or less. But it was really eliminating things that were negative. So the first thing was negative thoughts. Was like anytime I caught myself thinking negatively about a person or a thing or a situation, I tried to flip it.
How would you catch it?
You just have to, like, you wake up every day and go, okay, I'm going to think positive. I'm going to turn negative thoughts into positive ones. You have to just, it's like
setting an intention for the day.
Yeah. It's like an incantation, literally.
Yeah. So
that was the first thing was negative thoughts. The second thing, and it's still something that I'm working on today, was like eliminating negative habits. So it was like, for me, I used to be a musician in Montreal and I partied my fair share.
Sure.
Right. And so I was like,
alcohol.
Thursday, Friday, Saturday, alcohol, drugs, you name it.
Yeah.
And so I was eliminating those things. And then one of the last things, which was the toughest one, was eliminating negative people. Identifying toxic people. And like I had a year in 2014.
That's a tough one too.
Oh, dude, it was crazy. In 2014, I rapidly expanded my business. I was chasing the growth model for like 4 years in a row, and in the fourth year of my business, quadrupled it, and then had 8 people working with me, and had 2.5 acres and a lot of production, like 80 different veggie box customers, 20 different restaurants, 2 farmers markets a week. It was insane, and so it was a partnership that I went into. And it all just went sour. And, the people that I was involved with, it's all water under the bridge and all that. And it was like, it just wasn't, neither of us were in the right place at the time. And I also was in a relationship that was toxic. And it was a huge inhibitor on me.
It's a
moving
crab
forward.
bucket, right?
Oh, it was literally a crab bucket. You know,
Yeah.
people pulling you down, like the,
Yeah.
the Chaos song, "Crabs in a Bucket." Actually, I think that's a jazz song or something. It's quoted from somewhere else.
Yeah, but the lessons like rings true there, right?
Well, yeah, and it was crazy. But so the thing for me that was neat about that year is that I had all this responsibility, all this stuff, relationship, my personal relationship fell apart, my business partnership fell apart. I was down. Like, I thought I was done. I flipped it, and I had the most productive year of my life that year. I mean, in perspective, like, you know, I'm more productive now because I've learned to be more productive, but it was the most productive to date in that I wrote a book, I bounced back, my business came back, had made more money on my farm that year than ever, worked less, had more quality of life, wrote a book that year, and published an online course in 1 year when I thought the chips were down.
It's a major life transformation. It's huge.
You have to purge.
Yeah.
So I purged myself.
Yeah.
It's like a fast. You know, I purged myself and dropped all the dead weight, because negativity, whether it be habits, people, or thoughts, are just dead weight. And so I flipped it, and then I did all these things. And so now I'm still like, I'm trying to do, like, I just got off Facebook, and I love it. I'm done with Facebook. That's been my most recent
What are your
purge.
channels then?
Social media channels?
Yeah.
YouTube is my number one.
Yeah.
And I'm building, I've got a big email list that I haven't engaged. So I'm going to start just doing my own channels.
Nice.
I'm going to start building my own.
Like for your own website.
Yeah,
stuff.
you know what? Like this I realized I've been on Facebook for a long time.
Yeah.
And I enjoy writing. I really do. And I would share a lot of my farming content, but that was more specifically for my YouTube channel, because that's like specifically what that is. But I would also share my views on things on my Facebook. And I just found myself constantly wrapped up in pointless conversations with people who I have no idea who they are, arguing about things that don't matter.
Yeah.
And I'm just like,
Or they maybe matter, but no one's listening anyways.
Well, that's it. Well, people are listening, but it's just in the feed of endless arguments that I just realized. And then, you know, it was like the Cambridge Analytica thing happened, which I knew about because Obama did the same thing. But it was like when Trump did it, it was like, oh, now it's news. But everybody knows Facebook's spying on you. You know, everybody knows that when you have a conversation, all of a sudden you see ads. Like, come on, that's not a coincidence.
Right. Yeah.
So I realized, like, why am I creating content for this platform that doesn't care about me? And honestly, YouTube's probably the same thing, but at least I can monetize YouTube.
Yeah.
Facebook, there's very little return.
That's the thing that pisses me off about Facebook more than anything. Is just that, you know, we have like 40,000 followers on our Float House page. We post something and like a couple hundred people see it.
Oh, unless you sponsor it. You know, when I first launched my first online course, we had really good returns on Facebook ads.
Well, back in the day, it was amazing.
It was incredible. Like 500% returns on Facebook ads. It was amazing. You don't get those returns anymore. If you really know what you're doing, maybe you can, but yeah. No, it's true. I don't know. I mean, we still have it, obviously, but it's just like it is a frustrating one because they literally just keep turning down the reach, and they've been doing it for a long time now. They throttle it because there's other people. They're getting bigger and bigger, and more people need to get paid.
Well, you're gonna get big corporate money coming in there now too. So it's like, you know. Yeah, I guess it's, you know, if you can carve out your little niche there, then great. But it's definitely tougher though.
Totally.
But so you're creating your own channel now. So it's going to be through a website, and if they want to get connected with you, then they have to go to your site.
Yeah. Like my biggest point of interaction is my website, theurbanfarmer.co. And I you know, on that site I have my YouTube channel and stuff. I post relatively often on YouTube. Like do a lot of stuff on my farm. I'm less and less on my farm now because I'm a parent. We had a daughter a year ago. Thank you. And but I travel a lot. Yeah, very nice. I travel a lot, and so I interview other farmers, and so it's cool because I get to see what's happening, and it's like there's so much going on in sustainable agriculture. You know, it's easy, especially with Facebook, to go through the feed and get bummed out about the state of the world.
Oh yeah.
But I'll tell you firsthand, man. I've traveled to 5 different countries. And what's going on in sustainable agriculture is incredibly exciting.
Nice.
There's so much good news going on right now.
What are some of the big ones that are coming out?
Well, you know, some of the, there's a lot. There's a lot in the technology space. But in my space, particularly within like the small farming space, is the market demand is insane. Yeah. People want, you guys are a product of that in your niche as well. It's like people want clean, healthy food. not only do they want it organic, they want it fresh, and they even want to know who their farmer is.
Yeah,
they want to know
local,
where it comes
right.
from. They want local, right? And so all across the Western world, this is a massive trend. And there are farmers out there not only providing that to that demand, but also making a killer living at it. And so that's what excites me. Like I've visited hundreds of farms in different countries, and you know, it's rough. It's a tough lifestyle. If you don't have the systems and you don't pay attention to that system's thinking and are always running that in the back end of your thought process, you get caught up in the day-to-day and you get caught chasing things that aren't really providing value.
So there are some farmers that do well, but you also mentioned that there's some farmers that don't do well as well.
Most farmers don't do well. Most farmers, I mean, and this is where the commodity system versus sort of the niche system of small farming. The commodity system, unfortunately, is what's providing the lion's share of food. And I don't know if that will change in the sense that there's going to be farmers who run tractors and combines that are producing thousands of hectares of food. That's not going to change. What is going to change is that humans don't want to do that because it's not appealing. It's not sexy. Mm-hmm. Whereas farming, running a market garden, selling to your customers at the farmer's market, selling to high-end chefs, that's sexy and it's appealing, and you can make a good living doing it.
Right.
So here's the thing. I'm not here to say to your audience that what I'm doing is going to change the food system in the sense that we're going to be providing the lion's share of food. That's not I don't think that's what's going to happen immediately. But what is happening is that by all these small farmers providing food to these little niche markets, it's like, imagine cell phones in the 80s.
Yes.
They're really expensive, right?
Price is going to come down.
Yeah, and so it's like that here in Vancouver, too. It's like, you go to the farmer's market, it's ridiculous, like $5 for bags of carrots and things like that.
That's true.
However, it's like cell phones in the sense that only high-end realtors and finance people had them in the 80s.
Yeah.
But that R&D funded the next evolution to where now poor kids in Mexico can have an iPhone.
Yeah.
And that is happening. And so what the small farmers are doing is advocating the need for sustainable food. I think as far as the grand scheme of the large scale production systems, it's going to be robots and drones that do it. And they already are to some degree, but the drone technology is getting insane, and everything's going to go organic. In my estimation, 10 years, most things will be organic because the technology you don't need chemicals.
Right. I was going to say, like, the one argument that they would say is that the crop yields are lower. So that's
with small farming?
Well, no, with
organic?
with organic, yeah.
This is actually not true. I mean, it depends where you get your information, like anything. But the Rodale Institution did a study. I think it was a 5 or 10 year study. They did this a year or two ago, and they compared yields of USDA to organic farms. They found in the first year, yes, especially farms that converted from conventional organic, underperformed. But in the long term, they continuously improved because organic is all about soil, right? It's all about soil health. Conventional farming, you're feeding the crop. You're giving the crop exactly what it needs as far as its nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, whatever.
Yeah.
Organic is more about feeding the soil and creating the atmosphere to grow healthy crops, which increase over time. And I can tell you, even from our experience, like our farm, if you compare per square foot, we're 10 times the yield of what the best USDA stats do. That's because we make our farm is like a combination of the square foot gardening meets commercial farming.
Right.
Packing everything into a small space, giving the crops exactly the space they need. We're using hand tools, so we don't have to have all this excess space for tractors to turn around. We can pack everything in.
Right.
You know, one of our plots, we can basically make $10 a square foot. If I have a 5,000 square foot yard, we can make $50,000 of that in a growing season.
It's pretty impressive.
In a Canadian growing season.
You know, the soil thing has really been on my radar for a while, thanks to my sister-in-law, Jo Tobias, actually over at Root Shoot. She's like all about like soil and healthy soil and like how like the microbes in the soil are so critical to the whole thing.
Yeah, it's a living system.
Like, it's a living system. That's what she always talks about. Like, do you use somebody for like your soil to like get it like as healthy as it can be? How do you manage that?
Well, you know what's great about organic farming is soil health is really just feeding the soil biology, and good amounts of compost are pretty much all you need. I mean, you can get really scientific about it, and I'm not a soil scientist, but there's certainly people like Elaine Ingham And you know, a
Well,
lot of these soil scientists.
I'll say like check out Root Shoot on Instagram. She's like a local entrepreneur doing that as well, and she's actually growing. It's in my backyard right now, so it's like
right.
I see all the time.
There's a lot to it, right?
Yeah.
But principally, the great thing about organic farming is that you don't need to pull out the calculator and have a PhD to understand soil health. Put in organic nutrients. What comes in must go back. What comes out must go back in.
So you're saying it'll happen to someone naturally, or can?
Man,
happen?
I've seen so many farms. Like, I mean, I've seen the worst kind of soil conditions in places that you never would imagine people could grow food. Lots of compost. Feeding that biology, you can grow crops.
Right.
Even in situations where you have imbalanced pH. Now, it's not to say that you don't have to go in and change soil composition in the sense that you might have to adjust pH, you might have to do something to your nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium levels, or boron or calcium or whatever it is. However, you can literally just bootstrap it in an organic sense, that if you just bring in lots of good compost, it's 90% of the time that's going to work.
Yeah. You know, everything you're talking about today, it does seem like the wave of the future coming, and you're right on the cusp of it, and I feel like it's just starting, really.
It is.
And I feel like there's a lot of potential growth there.
Huge.
Which is, I think it's amazing to catch a trend like that. And that's such a big part of entrepreneurship as well, is like finding something that's going to trend and then building something around that, right? So there's a potential whole industry budding around your world.
Oh, it's insane. And I would say, you know, to your listeners, there's never been a better time to get into agriculture. Never been a better time. Two principal reasons why that are opportunistic. One is that the average age of a farmer is now 65 in North America. The other is less than 2% of people in the world, but let's just talk about North America right now, less than 2% are actually engaged in agriculture. So very few people actually work in it, meaning that most people don't know anything about it. And of that 2%, even a fraction of that are entrepreneurs that are going to bootstrap a business, employ people, build infrastructure, start a farm. So as this aging population of farmers are looking for ways to get out, there's these massive crevices that are opening in the industry of opportunity to go in and do things in a new way, because there's no incumbents.
Yeah.
It's not like trying to get into the retail space and going up against Walmart. Right? It's not like that. Yeah. It's just so many, and there's so many niche opportunities as well. That's what's so cool about it. And like, you know, my farming production system, which I didn't invent, I've just kind of embellished what other people were doing, is showing people that if you can identify a niche market in a local area and find out what those people want, and you can grow it, and I show people how to grow stuff in small spaces, you can make a living.
So they can do that through your website. Like, you have the systems.
Yeah. And in my book, you know, my whole thing from the beginning is basically apply my abundant mentality to my content. I give away all my information.
Yeah.
I have an online course too, which is basically consolidating everything into a very concise way. So there's a lot of value in that. But I mean, people watch my channel, hundreds of channels.
If you got a backyard somewhere in East Van or something, they could actually cultivate that.
To some degree, I mean, East Van is, you know, I know Vancouver. I've been coming here for years, my whole life, really.
Right. So
Vancouver, when you're up against buildings, like if you're talking like really dense urban, if you're in between two buildings, a lack of light. If you can get suburban, and there certainly are. There's urban farmers in Vancouver that have been doing this forever. Right. There's a lot of them. There's.
Are there any legal issues like permitting and stuff like that?
There can be, especially in a bigger city. You know, I encourage people to occupy the suburbs. Like, I really feel that the suburbs will be the new frontier of sort of sustainable homesteading and growing food, because in the suburbs, you've got, and it's a lot of solutions to a lot of problems that people criticize the suburbs for. Let's back up a little bit. People criticize the suburbs because all that commuting from the burbs into the city, all the people sitting in traffic. You know, not only is there a pollution issue there, there's also a human productivity issue here, which to me is huge. It's like you're commuting from Surrey into Vancouver every day, and you waste 2 hours every single day of your life in traffic. You could be spending that time with your family.
Totally.
You know, you could be doing something else.
If people are in that situation, like I commute a lot around Vancouver because of my life right now and the way it's set up, but it's just like, I turn that time into useful time. Like, I'm listening to podcasts, I'm listening to an audio book. Like, I'm learning while I'm driving.
That's what you should do. That's what's so great about the space we're in today, is like there's so much content available. Totally. Like, when I started farming, there was no Curtis Stone on YouTube. right? Like I had Elliot Coleman's book, and Elliot Coleman was one of the founders of the small scale farming, and that's all I had. But today it's like, anyways, so speaking to the suburbs is not only do we have that issue of people commuting and wasting resources, their own time, which is a valuable resource, as well as all the energy that goes in polluting the airway or the air we breathe, is that the suburbs, because they're sort of these detached areas, are hardly communities. You can go to suburban communities anywhere in the Western world, and most people don't even know their neighbors' names.
So true.
Which is insane to me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so there's many reasons for that, but one of the reasons I've identified is that people, because they don't work in their community, they get in a car and they drive to work.
It's very isolated.
Whereas it's isolating. Whereas if people were to start businesses, like say, and this is what's been my experience. I live in more or less a suburban town. By me farming in these backyards, I get to know all of my neighbors. So when we started our farm, it was like up to 12 different plots peppered around the city. And it was neat because I would go and farm these yards, do the work, and then I'd leave. So I'd go and spend a couple hours somewhere and then go to another plot. I would get to know all the neighbors because they would just come over and talk to me because they'd be like, this is kind of cool what you're doing.
So not only does it grow food, you're building community as well.
That's exactly.
Growing community.
And I think that's the larger piece involved there is
Right.
that you're building community and it's infectious. It's viral.
Yeah.
And so people come over, they walk over and they go,
people are starving for it, right?
They're starving for it, man. And here's the other thing I've figured out too. I don't want to derail where I'm going with this,
That's okay.
but people are starved for connections right now. And this was why another reason I left Facebook. Is that anyway, so I would go to these yards and neighbors would come over and go, wow, you're planting right now? Like, because we start early. We break ground sometimes in February. And people are like, holy crap, you're planting spinach now? And so then they're, well, okay, well, you know what? I'm going to start doing that. And so it's been neat because I've probably turned over, just in my local area, like globally, obviously more, but in my local area, I've turned at least 20 yards over in the course of my career doing this. It's almost been 10 years. And every plot that I've farmed, there's been at least 10 or more gardens in that immediate area that pop up because people go, why the hell would I have a lawn? What a waste of time.
Right. Really?
It's like, the lawn's funny,
lawn,
right? Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And
it's aristocratic. It's
it's a show of status and
Yeah.
wealth, and it became into prominence sort of the baby boomer era, the 50s and 60s, when they had this absolute abundance in the economy. People were like, I'm not going to be a peasant and do that, because before that, there was the victory
only the
gardens,
rich had
right?
lawns, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so it was a status symbol because it was like, yes, I got my white picket fence, I get my lawn, it's a symbol, it's a status symbol. But it's funny because, the reality of middle class life is you still got to work. And you got to go and mow that damn lawn and maintain it. And your neighbors get pissed off at you if there gets too many weeds in it.
Yeah.
So you got to keep up with the Jones.
Property values going down.
Yeah. So the garden, it's like, it's funny because people look at our farm and they go, why the hell? This lawn thing is stupid. They kind of shake off their disillusionment with that idea because people don't really understand the idea. It's so embedded in our culture and subconscious now that people don't actively think about it.
Yeah.
But the cool thing about our farming is that when they see our farm, they're faced with it, and I didn't have to evangelize them or tell them anything. They see the production and they go, holy shit, this is so cool. You're telling me I can grow $20,000 of food in my 2,000 square foot yard and I could essentially feed my family produce for 8 months of the year? And it's not that much more work than growing a lawn, and it probably consumes the same amount of water.
Well, the results speak for themselves, right? You don't have to sell anybody; they can see it.
Well, that's the thing, and that's where people in the organic space. There's a lot of stuff out there, and there's I don't know if some of your listeners or viewers are familiar with permaculture, and this is this idea, of like it's a combination of words: permanent agriculture or permanent culture. I love it. Permaculture, what inspired me to get into this stuff. However, there's a little bit of misinformation in permaculture in that, well, for one, nothing's actually permanent. Not even mountains are permanent.
Right. With permaculture, the idea is that it's a self-renewing
and this is where I'm going
right?
with this, is that this whole idea of self-renewing, that you don't have to work, is a crock of shit. Everything takes work. Agriculture does not exist in nature.
Right.
Agriculture is a product of human development so that we can control nature to give the returns that we want when we want them. Right? So, but what I love about permaculture is the ideas to take that mix it with production thinking in agriculture, and then something we do is maybe in there. But what happens in permaculture that I see a lot of people who watch my channel, they kind of go, oh my God, like I've been making these spiral gardens and these food forests, and I'm just not getting what I wanted of it. It's, you know, it's actually more work than I thought. They come to me or us and they go, okay, now I see it, this makes sense. And so a lot of the people that I teach, I would say 50% of the people that I teach in my workshops or come to my online course, we're total permaculture devotees that go, okay, wait, now I need something that's a bit more practical, a bit more economical. Because like, if you're passionate about growing food and you got an ambitious garden and you hate your job, why not combine the two?
Sure.
Why not quit your job and do something that you're passionate about and you love, that you know creates value in the community, that creates value for yourself and your family and your lifestyle. And, you know, your viewers might appreciate this, is like gardening is meditation.
Yeah.
Like in the garden, when I'm in my garden, like I have a personal garden at home that I just grow food for our family. It's outside of the farm. When I'm in there with my daughter, like I'm meditating.
Totally.
I'm connected. My hands are in the soil.
It's so connecting. You're connecting to the earth. You're connecting to the food that you're growing, and then you're going to consume that food.
Yeah, and I'm connecting to my neighbors.
Yeah.
Because they all walk by and go, oh, what are you planting today? And we talk. And we get a conversation going. And then it actually feels like community.
You know, it's so healthy on so many levels of your being, right? Because you're getting the awesome produce, you're getting the social aspect of life, you're getting outside, you're getting away from screens,
you're getting away
natural connection to your food. Like I feel like it's such a good way to integrate holistically into sort of an urban setting.
It is, and and we are starving for it.
Yeah.
In this social, my prediction is in 5 years, Facebook will be a ghost town, because I think we're hitting a peak of, and this is what I'm feeling in the public consciousness, and I'd be interested to hear what your viewers and listeners think about this, what you guys think about this, but I really feel like we're at a peak of social disconnection. And I'm getting this resonance around the world that people are just striving for real connections. Like, who cares if you have 5,000 friends on Facebook?
Yeah.
How many of those people do you actually know?
30.
Totally. Like that, you have real connections with that. So I'm not even talking about acquaintances that you go see at a party or at the farmer's market. I'm talking about real friends
with, like
you hang out with that you know, and you really care about their best interest. You know, you were mentioning at the beginning, Masterminds.
Yes.
Dude, like I started doing that with some key friends of mine who are entrepreneurs, and we all really have a deep love and respect for each other.
Yeah.
And like that propelled me far.
The mastermind thing is so good, especially for men. That's one thing I think.
Huge for men.
Because like men are
we don't have those connections like women have the natural ability to do that.
Men will lone wolf it. Like they'll go out
Big
there
time.
on their own.
We'll bootstrap
I got to take on the world by myself.
That's right.
And like Mike's part of a men's group, Samurai Brotherhood, which I was part of.
Yeah, I am too.
Oh, you part of them too?
No, I'm part of a men's group
men's
in my town.
Okay,
yeah.
I'm taking over Man Talks here in Vancouver. And what's your men's group?
We don't have a name. It's nothing official. It's about 10 guys that get together once a month, and we talk about issues and things that we care about. And
good. It's unbelievable. So good. It's just like it's amazing the positive benefit you get from it on different levels. You get the social aspect, the community aspect. You get the problem solving, masterminding aspect.
Well,
you get the motivation and drive. It's
and the deeper dive into yourself as well. Like you know, getting your bullshit called out, or you know, when you're kind of like in this space where you think that this is really important, you're focused on this, and people like someone external to me like, no, stop, and you're doing this.
Hold on.
The way. So for me, the men's group and masterminds are a different thing. Men's group is more just like some key people that we share similar views, and we all really respect each other and want to have deep conversations that aren't wasted in Facebook.
Yeah.
Basically. Mastermind is, for us, is key people in your peer group that are like entrepreneurs. You know, for myself, entrepreneurs who have multiple things going, and all of us sort of intersect in some way or another in our businesses.
Right.
And so that we keep that to 6 people max.
Yeah.
And usually our sort of platform for that is once a year, it's usually in the fall, we pick a place. So sometimes we fly to get to wherever we're going to go. We do different places in the country, or we're talking about going to Mexico and stuff too. We usually we get together, and usually it's got to be at least 3 days. And we eat together, we hang out, we do activities together. Sometimes we do like a pretty good mushroom trip together, delve deep into break
That'll
down
really-
the ego.
Yeah,
Smart.
That'll do it.
Shatter that.
Yeah.
And really what it's about is creating space for each person to have the floor. And, you know, so we have sort of the fun activities, the cultural activities like eating, maybe the mushroom trip. And then we do business where in the sense where we talk about like everybody gets an hour. And we have different sessions and we'll often kind of plan this out. But it's like in this block, so we're going to have like, this is going to be like the day. Pretty much everybody gets an hour, and so it's collective brain power, CPU stacked, right? So it's like network the computers together, 6x the CPU, solve problems that you would have taken you years to solve. You solve in minutes.
So powerful.
Because
ridiculous.
when you
So
have
good.
when you have a group of men or women can do this too. I've helped
definitely
some
do.
women friends of mine and proteges, giving them advice on how to start masterminds. Anybody can do this, but I like to have it with men because we can be men a bit more, right? Not and not. Right?
You know,
Don't need
and,
to
and
do that,
it's a
but-
great space for that too. And again, one thing that we've cultivated with Connor Beaton here in Man Talks is like, you know, that we've proven that there's definitely a want and need for it amongst men, and
There
it's
is,
such a healthy thing for men to be a part of.
I
And
think in this day and age
Yeah.
too, where the world's changing, and it's not the old boys club anymore.
No,
and I
totally
think
not.
that's a good thing. I'm all for
Absolutely,
that.
absolutely.
I'm all for that.
Yeah.
And but at the same time, there are some sort of universal truths and reasons why men like to get together and women like to get together, and that's totally cool.
It's fine.
Right?
In fact, traditionally, like in like old school European towns, like the women would congregate, the men would
Yeah.
congregate. They go and talk about politics, sports, whatever
Yep.
they want to talk about.
Yep.
You know, women would be doing their thing and intermingling and cooking and
Yeah.
I'm not just saying cooking. They're doing lots of other things as well. But I mean, but usually it's around an activity as
Absolutely.
well. Like
Yep.
sometimes with men, we bond over activities.
Yeah,
Like,
we
that's
build
sort of-
things and we
Yeah.
do stuff with our hands.
Yeah.
You know.
But I mean, it's just, and it's okay. You know, it's like so many people
It's
get
awesome.
upset that it's like, why divide? But it's like it's not a divide. It's like it's a time to. How would you describe it in the healthiest possible way?
Well-
because it's not.
well,
There's
for
nothing
one-
insidious going on.
No,
there,
and
right?
for one, it's not dividing because everybody has groups, right?
Right.
Everybody has a group.
Right.
So it's like just because you didn't invite the world to your mastermind doesn't mean that you're excluding people. It just means that you have identified some people that you share a lot of values with
Yeah.
and you want to get together with. It's
Yeah.
like
Totally, man.
We're
it's
at 52 minutes.
Yeah, I've been watching it.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, are you good for time still? You're good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, this is awesome because like we've been talking about. I wanted to get into like some of the things that have really benefited you in your life and got you to where you are.
Yeah.
And obviously, so the Mastermind and Men's Group are one.
Yeah.
You mentioned the mushrooms. That's interesting that you bring that up as well.
yeah, and you know, not on a. It's like it might have been a one or two, you know, every couple years kind of thing. Like
Right.
and not even every mastermind we did that because some people. We bring in a new person every now and then, and sometimes they weren't comfortable with it, and so
Yeah.
we never would do that unless we're all on the same page. I find that's key with that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
If you're going to delve into your psyche.
Totally. Have
Yeah.
you ever heard of the book Stealing Fire with Stephen Kotler? I can't remember the other author.
No.
But it's all about peak experience and flow states in order to like just maximize creativity and productivity as well.
Totally.
But also the peak experience is really interesting. They say that people who actually go out and seek a peak experience of some type are generally more successful in life. So the more peak experiences that an individual has, the more success or more likely they will have
Right,
a chance of
interesting.
success. So this kind of brings me to the first question, and it is, what is one of the most life-changing peak experiences that you've had, and like what's been the result of that?
Man, I've had a lot, to be honest. I think my most pivotal peak experience, I touched on a little bit, is when everything turned for me and I lost most of everything when my business had a tough year, partnership fell apart, personal relationship fell apart, basically stripped myself down to just like, here I am. I did a mushroom trip with my men's group that year.
Yep.
And I basically just broke through my ego and was just like, what am I here to do? What am I here to, how do I bring value to the world? How do I help people? And when that year, even that specific event that day, I shattered everything and just like stripped myself down to, what's my purpose in life? And where I'm at right now is empowering people to grow food and take control of their health and their lifestyle. And it was that. I mean, there's
so you
many
broke
others
down
too.
you broke down the ego, and from there it seems like you put yourself aside a little bit, and you decided to serve something bigger than yourself. That's what I'm hearing.
You know, another part of that too was like not being afraid to be vulnerable, not being afraid to show vulnerability. Another peak experience would have been when I did my bike tour down the West Coast, and I was just a Canadian in a pair of spandex and a plaid shirt, and people would just come up to me and talk to me because I wasn't intimidating anyway. I wasn't with a group, you know, I was by myself. And seeing how people would, you know, one thing I like to call it is like wearing your values on your sleeve. Like, this is who I am, you know. One thing I tell
not
people
being afraid
is
to tell people that.
Yeah, and not being able to share that, and also be open to new ideas.
Right.
But like I say it like it's like I have a hanky in my back pocket. You know, it's
you
like
carry a hanky?
farmer style. I carry a hanky. Kleenex and tissue.
You're going off the grid, man. You're going farming and Facebook and handkerchiefs.
So the hanky, I consider my hanky is sort of like a metaphor for my values. Is that like I carry my values with me, who I am, what I'm about, what I care about, who I love. It's always with me. It's not strapped to my forehead. It's not like a bandana.
So it's not a virtue signal?
It's in my back. It's not exactly. It's not a virtue signaling thing. It's in my back pocket. It's with me. I know it's always there. I'm always checking it. But it's not strapped to my forehead to shove down your throat.
Well, it's functional, right?
Well, totally. But you know, one thing I discovered earlier in the day, because I was one of those guys, and maybe I still am to some degree. I was one of those guys before I got into farming and I was vegetarian for like 17 years.
Right.
You'd be the first to know. If you sat down, like I always tell you, I'm a vegetarian. You know, this is this and this, and you have this hard line stance on your values that sort of pretty much draws a line in the sand.
Polarizing.
Polarizes. So it's like that's where the back pocket things come from. It's like you know what you're about, you know what you care about. It's with you, but you don't have to just confront people with it all the time.
Love it.
Totally.
And that's like for me, it was a personal transformation of like having really don't want to get political, but I'll just mention it. Is it's like I had very hard line leftist values, which would be what we would call like the extreme radical left today, very Marxist ideas. That was like, if you have more than me, it's because you're privileged and you have more power, and you shouldn't have that, and that power should be distributed. And a lot of that stuff changed for me when I started doing business and realizing how hard it actually was to build those things. Like, you know, like people.
Well, first of all, most businesses fail. Like start right
like
there.
90% fail in the first year or something like that.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. The numbers are crazy, right?
It's insane.
And it's like you have to work so goddamn hard to make it work.
That's the thing. Like, that's where my transformation came from. That with those ideas is that I had to hustle so hard and grind so hard that when I started, because I was reached out to by older business people in my community that were like, "Hey, I like you. I want to help you." A lot. And at first I was like, "Fuck off. You're a capitalist douchebag." I literally had that attitude.
Yeah.
And then when I went through the grind and realized, like, holy crap, these people hustled. Like, this isn't just handed to you on a golden platter.
Yeah.
You don't just show up because you're white and here's a whole list of opportunities for you. It's like you have to grind. And so for me, like, dude, I literally worked so hard in the first 4 years of my farm. I was working over 100 hours a week, pretty much every waking hour, not even getting enough sleep. There were times where I was literally on the floor in the fetal position crying because I was so damn tired and exhausted I couldn't even eat.
Yeah.
I was like running myself into the ground.
Yeah.
That's what I had to go through.
Well, that's I think a very typical entrepreneur story. Like, it's just
totally.
Like, I mean, you have, especially at the beginning, you're burning the candle, and then if you're one of the lucky few that are successful, then perhaps you reap the benefits of that.
Well, I don't even think it's luck. I think it's just like, do you have the ability to observe and interact and take those observations and do something with them?
Yeah.
It's just like, because you can. It's like, it's not luck, really. I mean, maybe there's luck in some degree because like you might be at the right place at the right time and something happens, but that's also your ability to see opportunities.
I guess I was just saying, like, going against the odds, like beating the odds.
Oh, big time. But I've just found like your perception, and this is where the positive thinking comes in. If you iterate in your mind, reiterate positive thoughts and affirmations, you will just switch your mind on to opportunities and you'll just see things all the time. And this is what I found is like mindset is also exponential. The Pareto Principle applies to mindset in that if you double down on your mindset, you become an attractor. And that's what I found in my life. I'm a personality that is an attractor. When I was really negative, I attracted negative people. And when I flipped to being positive, I attracted positive people. Would just show up in my life.
Oh man, that is such a huge point. Huge point.
It was it was crazy, and it's like it still happens.
It's true, man. And people can adopt that principle, and like you said, it snowballs, and you start getting more opportunities because of it. And
dude, I there's so many things coming my way that I just am saying no all the time.
Amazing.
Because it's just
that's awesome, man.
And it's a great place to be, and anybody can manifest it because I've seen people in all kinds of walks of life flip it and build that abundant mentality and just attract people.
Awesome, man. This kind of leads into another question I had for you, and it is, what's one major idea that's created a huge paradigm shift in your life?
I think we just talked about it, frankly.
Yeah, I know. That's I was like, you already answered the question.
It was,
just rewind and listen to that again.
Yeah. The idea is the law of abundance.
Yeah.
Is that things stack exponentially, and that is like it's the Jedi Force, right? It's either the dark side or the what do they call the good side of the Force?
Light.
The light.
Sure. And you can use it either way, right?
You can because every day you have a choice. You wake up and you go, am I going to live my life in fear and scarcity, or am I going to live my life in love and abundance? And it's literally that choice. When I wake up, the first thing I do, I went onto this track just this winter. I started combining intermittent fasting with a mostly keto diet, cold showers in the morning, and the first thing I think when I wake up are what are 3 things that I'm grateful for. Every day I wake up.
I think you're one of us.
It's just like I see my daughter and my wife, and I go, I love this. I'm so lucky. I'm so happy to live in a community. I know my neighbors. It's like I can go on forever about all the things that I'm thankful for. It's like pick 3, start your day with that, and then when you get up, it's like don't put the news on right away.
Yeah.
But I at the same time I can listen to the news as long as I wake up and think, what am I thankful for?
Start positive.
Totally.
Huge. All right, next one. Let's see here. What advice would you give to your younger self?
Start small. Don't take on too much. Incrementally grow it. And it's another Pareto thing is that like it's the Fibonacci spiral, right? So, and I love these universal truths. But so if we talk specifically about farming, or let's just say agriculture or entrepreneurialism, is start small, take tiny steps, and then really refine those things, and then leverage your ability, and then the steps get bigger, and your effectiveness grows, where you get to a point where, like I'm at a point now where I can get more done in an hour than it would take me 10 hours 10 years ago, because it's focus and just absolutely, looking at what you do well, measuring that, and then just continuously doubling down on that.
That reminded me of Peterson's one rule of do that which is meaningful, not that which is expedient.
Absolutely.
Same thing, right?
That book blew my mind. Like when I first read How to Win Friends and Influence People by Carnegie, that was a big turning point for me.
Yeah.
But then when I read Peterson's book, I read it over the winter. I feel like that book is going to be timeless in the ages because he's speaking to other things, and so it culturally resonates with a lot of the Western world. Totally. Already translated in other languages, so it's speaking for itself.
Yeah, I think it's a big one. Like there's certain books that are just impactful that strike a chord with people, and I believe that is one. I mean, he's over 1 million copies sold now. It's ridiculous,
insane.
Right?
In that short of time.
He's touring internationally. Like,
oh yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah. All right, let's go with 1 or 2 more here. And I'll go with what's one of the best health practices that you've actually established?
Recently, switching to intermittent fasting has been cool. I, as I've become more successful in my career, I haven't had to grind as physically hard as I used to. So I've actually gained some weight. I used to be a bone rail, man. I used to... From the time I was like 16 to the time I was maybe 30, I weighed 150 pounds. I had barely any fat on my body, but I would burn out fast because I didn't have a lot of fuel to go in the long haul. And so I got addicted to energy drinks when I was really hustling my business at the beginning. I was crushing 2 Monsters a day or Red Bulls. Bad habit. So I gained, but as I got more successful, I gained a little weight because I wasn't hustling the same way that I was. I got up to like 230 pounds or something like that. I'm now under 200. I'm
Awesome.
like I think my natural, I should be at 175. I just started doing this in the winter, but intermittent fasting. So basically I eliminate breakfast. Don't eat breakfast. Wake up, when I get up in the morning, have a cold drink of water, and I'll have a coffee, like really plain coffee. And I won't eat until 1 o'clock. And then basically from 1 till 7 p.m. is the time. And I don't think this works for everybody. And I'm no health expert, and I'm not advocating people try this. But it really worked for my body type. I lost 20 pounds fast. I lost 20 pounds in a month. The first month of me doing it, I lost 20 pounds. Now I'm kind of gradually.
You know what? That's what happens with it. I've seen is that it does sort of taper off after a while.
Yeah, I've noticed that. Like I have a buddy in Mexico who lost 80 pounds in 2 months with intermittent fasting.
Wow, that's
so
impressive.
That has been crucial for me. And so so my morning ritual is gratitude, water and coffee, and then cold shower. Like I blast it cold. Try to take it at least over a minute.
Right.
And in the winter, it's even more crucial because once you get in the summer, it's not as much of a shock.
Yes.
But I would have the cold shower and then immediately take my daughter for a walk outside when it's like -10. And it was like, I feel charged.
Yeah.
Absolutely aware.
Another two good ones you can add to that list as well is light exposure, because light's going to activate a lot of those same systems as well, and movement. So if you can get get outside, get a little bit of light, or turn on that's
what I do. Movement's never been an issue for me because I've got a farm I can go on and do stuff on anytime.
Movement in terms of just like activating your body and turning
Absolutely.
it on, like just doing some jumping jacks, like 50 jumping jacks or something like that. Something not too crazy, but like that really, you activate everything and like you're on, right?
I just find like my morning is my most productive time, and I'm a pretty early riser, and so, which has changed a little bit since having a kid, but up at like 5 a.m. and then coffee, and then I can do my most productive, most intellectually challenging things in the first 4 hours. If I can get those done by noon, I already feel like I've crushed the day. And then pretty much anything from there on is gravy.
Yeah,
so it's
I agree.
Okay, I can go spend 2 hours with my daughter in the park.
Awesome.
In the middle of the day, and I still feel like I won.
Yeah.
As far as is my career,
you're growing, and
I'm always wanting to be
family.
productive as far as my family is concerned, getting things obligations that I have and responsibilities I have. But I still have to. I'm the breadwinner of my family. I gotta crush it every day.
Yeah. And I hear the Gary Vaynerchuk seeping out in your lingo a little bit.
You know what's funny? I didn't get into Vaynerchuk until like maybe 2 years ago, and I've been saying crush it for a long time.
I like it.
But then I read Vaynerchuk, and I was like, oh, I'm already kind of doing what he was talking about, because a lot of what he's talking about
confirms what you're doing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Okay, this is the last one, and you kind of hinted on it earlier, but what advice would you give to people about money?
Well, I'm no expert in money. I've done very well with investing in myself, and also paying off debt. So one thing, I've done fairly well for myself. I own a home. I can afford good things in my life. My wife and I aren't limited in the things that we want to do, more or less. We're not taking private jets like Gary Vaynerchuk, but that would be cool.
Maybe one day.
I'm open to that. One thing that's worked for me really well is like if you're wanting to do something with money, is first invest in yourself, invest in your own self-knowledge, and invest in things that are close to you that you really understand. So like for me, because I have a number of businesses. I own a business in California called Paperpot Co. We sell this Paperpot transplanter tool. I'm a partner in that company. I have the Urban Farmer Co., which is my publishing and my content company, and I have my farm. And what's worked for me is investing in myself. I don't, I own a home, and I was actually just going to buy another home just a couple weeks ago, because market's going crazy, and I have some money that I need to do something with.
Why not? Yeah.
But then I kind of weighed the options. I don't know if any of your listeners or you guys are familiar with Nassim Taleb. Wrote a book called Anti-Fragile.
What's that about?
He's a genius mathematician who writes about this idea that you have there's three states in the world. There's fragility, there's robustness, and there's anti-fragile. So fragility is your glass bottle, you drop it, it breaks. Robustness is a rock, it drops on the ground, it doesn't break. anti-fragile is like muscle tissue. Is it resistance over time makes things stronger. And so ever since I've understood this concept, I've tried to do everything in my life to make myself anti-fragile, in the sense that little experiments, a little bit of money here, a little bit of activity here, trying things. Okay, this works. Okay, let's do more of that. That didn't work. Let's stop that. So instead of just like,
testing,
I'm going to go and put $100,000 in the cannabis stock market and hope that pays out. Okay, maybe put a little bit there, see what happens. Okay, take those returns, put them back in. You know, it's testing. It's running little tests. And so I've done that with my life, in the sense that no matter which way the market goes, I win. So, and this was my thinking behind paying off my mortgage. So I'll be mortgage free in 2 years. In that if the market goes good and I own my home, I can still win because I have a ton of equity. And if the market goes bad, I can win too because I have no debt. Yeah. And I don't owe anybody anything. And I also am a food producer who can provide intrinsic value in any type of economy.
Yeah. So have you been aggressively paying off your mortgage then?
Absolutely, like putting down huge sums on it, because I was gonna go and put down a big chunk of change. The houses in Kelowna right now, like I was looking at a house that was $675. I got to have almost $250,000 as a down payment on that. So I was gonna go do that, but I was like, let's just get it a debt, because I don't know where the market's gonna go. Anti-fragile.
Interesting. I like
that. It's just all about doing what works for me, controlling what's in my grasp. Mm-hmm. That's what I like about real estate as an investment too. Vancouver is a whole other beast, right? But you don't have to buy in Vancouver. You can go other places too. A lot of people are doing that. A lot of Vancouverites are coming to Kelowna now because it's
more reasonable.
Yeah. Getting less reasonable by the day. But
totally crazy. Yeah. Well, Curtis, this has been awesome, man. I'd love to have you back on at a later date and get an update on everything that's going on for you. I think you're an inspiration, man. You're doing a lot of amazing things in the world. I think that a lot of people can learn from you, which they obviously are. So thank you very much for coming on today.
My pleasure.
Any last words you'd like to get out there?
Yeah, if people want to check out my stuff, go to theurbanfarmer.co. From there, you'll find my YouTube channel, my Instagram. If you go on YouTube and you just put in Urban Farmer Curtis Stone, you'll find me. And that's about it.
Excellent, man. Thank you very much.
All right, guys.
Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
And if you're still with us, if you liked what you heard today, give us a little rating and review on iTunes, YouTube, or Stitcher. Really helps us get found. And of course, visit floathouse.ca. Use the promo code Vancouver Real and get yourself 20% discount on a single float. And link up with us at Man Talks, Mindful Mass, and Vancouver Real meetups. Let's get some of that community going, right? Some of that FaceTime instead of just digital. Come out to an event and let's connect.
The central hub, andysremba.com.
Oh, andysremba.com. I forgot.
There you go.
I
didn't forget
earlier. Thanks, man.
All right.
I appreciate that. All right. Until next time.
To whatever is.
To whatever is.